I got started in mountain biking probably about 11, 12 years ago, and just something that caught my eye, and it was kind of during the height of the mountain biking coming into popularity, and lots of guys around me were riding. I was still in middle school, and it seemed like it was a pretty cool sport. I was never much into road biking or anything, but mountain biking definitely caught my eye. And yeah, I got my first bike and just started riding the trails around my house, and that just led to finding other spots around the area and finding different groups to ride with and different people to ride with, and just started the fun from there. I was reading in Dirt Rag probably maybe 2 years ago or so, and there was a story about the Great Divide ride, and I had never even heard of it before, never knew it existed or that a route existed. And it was a lot of my friends were starting to talk about hiking, doing the AT, something big like that. And hiking's never really been my cup of tea, so biking was kind of naturally the thing I wanted to do. Well, the Great Divide Trail is a 2,700-mile trek. It starts in Banff, Alberta, and it ends right at the border of Mexico and Antelope Wells, New Mexico. And the states you travel through are Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and then New Mexico. And you do jump a little bit into Idaho. So we saw a lot of big hills, a lot of pretty mountains, and yeah, just the two. We went through Alberta and British Columbia up in Canada, and those were probably some of the most spectacular places that Nat or I had ever been.
Taking a look at caves. Yeah, that was sweet. Inspiring. You don't get out of the group much.
I might. At least if I cool down one way.
I biked with Jen and Doug Wenger and Nat Morgan, and then myself. It was the four of us that started up in Banff in June, and only finished with Nat and I. Unfortunately, Jen and Doug had some unforeseen circumstances. They weren't able to finish it, but they definitely want to get back and ride it again. We started June 5th, ended on August 14th, so it was right about 70 days. Took a few break days, took a few slow days, so we figured it was about 2 months total that we were actually on the bikes. And yeah, it was definitely, every day was an adventure and just a great time. Flying into Banff was one of the most beautiful places any of us had ever been, just surrounded by huge snow-capped mountains. It was beautiful. And starting off the trip, we biked through Banff National Forest and the national park up there, and it was just beautiful scenery. We headed into British Columbia, and everything was just as pretty. It was absolutely beautiful. And yeah, certainly lots of things conquered, lots of long days in the saddle that you just get off and you're just extremely excited to be done, but happy that you rode so far that day.
Well, here we are in the Great Basin. There is nothing around for miles and miles, and yeah, not even any trees. So we'll be here for about 100 miles and check back in Rawlins.
One of the most intense parts was a pass called Marshall that was between Salida, Colorado, and Sargent, Colorado. And it had been raining for most of the day. We were climbing, and as we were halfway up the climb, there was a big thunderstorm that came over us and just really kind of set us down. But we just kept on. We were doing a lot of walking, a lot of slow riding, and when we finally got to the peak, we saw that the descent the road was closed, and they had talked about a washout on the sign that we read. And so we decided to push forward, and as we got about halfway down the descent, the road was completely washed out. There was hardly any room to even get the bikes by, and we ended up spending the night at the washout. And the next morning, it took us probably 3 or 4 hours to get up this hillside that was caked in clay and mud, and it was just it caked the bikes up, and we just really wanted to quit at that point. Some of the intense ups were just meeting people that were very, very friendly, letting us stay at their houses, cooking us meals. It was pretty cool, the hospitality you find when you least expect it and when you most need it. This year was definitely it's definitely a lot of firsts for me. I haven't raced in probably about 7 years now, and just this past Sunday I did the Vermont 50. And it was a 50-mile mountain bike race up near Mountain Ascutney in Vermont, and it was pretty cool. I had never done anything like that before. Most of the races I had done in the past were maybe 20, 30 miles, so it was definitely a push, but everybody was so friendly, very excited to be there, and it was just a fun all-day event. But definitely in the future, just listening to Tyler Dermott's blog that was on this past month, doing the Transalps sounds like a very cool adventure, very similar to the Great Divide, but definitely different country and different scenery. It'd be pretty cool to do that.
So we're getting ready to leave the basin, and this is by far the most boring thing pretty much we've encountered on the trip. We've been riding on this flat pavement road for probably about 10 miles now. I got about 10 miles more to go. And yeah, I wish I were off it because we're just surrounded by desert. Well, the sun is pretty warm right now.
Blah. My parents, family and friends, just everybody that whenever I called home was very supportive, telling me they were reading the blog and really keeping up with us was so cool. And EMS for sponsoring us, helping us with some gear before we left, that was key, and that we wouldn't have been able to do the trip without. And also Jackie and the folks over at Noon really helped us out. The electrolyte replacement drinks, without them, I mean, we would have been cramping up. We wouldn't have had the energy we did to do the longer mile days.